Welcome back. I'm Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster here in the Highland Lakes with Art Dlugach. We're going to continue our talk about the expansion. I don't even know what you want to call it. Realliance? I don't know what you want to do. Movement?
Escape. How about that?
Escape. Here in college sports, specifically college football, you had mentioned the teams that the Pac-12 is looking at. I agree that Boise State has been a phenomenal football program. At the same time, though, here's my question to you. Does Boise, Idaho, or Idaho in general, because I think of Montana and Wyoming the same way, do you think traditional powerhouse when you think of Boise State, and do you think that Pac-12 viewers are really going to be that invested?
Pac-12 or Big 12?
No, Pac-12. Yeah, I mean, because are you saying the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are both looking at Boise State?
Well, that's what you hear, and the question is a very good one. But we're running out of what I would call brand name schools. So when a Boise State as good as it has been pops up, then you might jump on them for that reason, because I can't think of too many others. So I think that the Pac-12 is faced with teams like San Diego State, Fresno State, and they're not crazy about getting those, but they just may not have a choice if they want to expand after the loss of UCLA and USC.
Yeah, and that part I do agree with you on, because you're running out of name brands. The problem is, and I don't know how to say this, when you're looking at the business of college sports, the business, you still want the eyeballs. How many eyeballs will Boise State and the state of Idaho produce? But you may not have a choice because who else is left?
Right, that's what I'm saying. And if you're wondering about why the schools move and this whole business, and it has been said by other people before me, it's all about the money they're going to get from these bigger conferences like the Big Ten and the SEC. I think a wild card in all this is Notre Dame. Now, you say they are stuck in football with ACC.
The way I understand it, when Notre Dame signed their contract to join the ACC, there is a clause in that contract that reads, if Notre Dame's football program ever wants to join a conference, they have to join the ACC. I personally think that if the Irish ever join a conference, it's not going to be in the ACC. I think they'll try to get into the Big Ten. That's my opinion.
Oh, I think that would be a great place for them. Midwestern school, that sounds perfect. But if the Pac-12 or the Big 12 could put out some humongous dollars, maybe they could get them. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Jennifer's correct that it appears if Notre Dame goes someplace else, the Big Ten would be a great landing spot for them.
And the bottom line, from what I've read, the reason that Notre Dame is not looking to go into a conference right now is because the two asterisks that would compel them to join a conference is not in play. The first one is TV partner. They have that with NBC Sports.
Yes.
Even though I think they're at the tail end of that contract, they may be negotiating right now. And the second is, do they have a clear path to the playoff? And right now the answer is yes. So if one or both of those things are not in their favor, they'll have to look to join a conference. Right now, those two things are working in their favor, so they're not looking. But you never know. I mean, I would have never thought USC and UCLA would ever leave the Pac-12.
I didn't either. I would say one thing about this clear path for Notre Dame. No question, we've thought about that the last number of years that there's been a playoff system. But I think the committee is a little bit does not want to be blamed for not letting in a Cincinnati when it seems to have a better record and deserves it more than Notre Dame and Cincinnati made it last year. So I think that power of Notre Dame could be shrinking just a bit. In other words, they better win. As Al Davis used to say, just win, baby. They still have that challenge on them to do, or they're not going to make those playoffs just automatically.
No, and that I agree with, but I would say that to everybody. I'd say that to all 132 football teams right now. You got to win and win now. You got to make your case. To quote Mac Brown, you have 365 days to prove that you deserve one of those playoff spots. But the problem is that you only get 12 days to showcase it, right? You get 12 games, 12 days. If you falter on one of those 12 days, the other 350-something don't matter. And that's the challenge in a one-and-done system like that, which is that kind of a playoff, and as opposed to a series.
Don't forget now, with everything else going on, it's probably 50-50. It looked like it was a done deal, but that this 4-team playoff could be increased to 12, which I'm certainly in favor of. But you know what? We don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, I'll say this. I read the reports on that as well. I do believe that had the timing of the OU-UT leaving for the SEC, had the timing of that story not broke when it did, I think that would have already gotten voted on and approved. I think we would have been staring down the barrel of a 12-team playoff much sooner than you think.
Well, I don't call it a barrel. I say it's something I want.
No, I think most people do.
Yeah.
The problem is that there is a lot of mistrust right now. And that has been underscored with what happened with UCLA and USC. The only people who really pay the price for that are the fans, in my opinion. Those of us who really want to see a 12-team playoff, think that there should be a 12-team playoff, read the outline of that proposal and what they were doing, liked it, didn't have a problem with anything I read. The issue is that I believe Bowlesby, I believe the Big Ten at that time, and the ACC commissioner at that time got blindsided by UT and OU and the SEC and what happened, and they said, there's just a lot of mistrust right now. People don't trust anybody, and if you can't trust somebody, you're not going to work with them. That's my opinion. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out, because the 14 playoff, I believe, will be played through the end of the 2024 season.
So yeah, I just got a call from Llano head football coach Matt Green. She says I'm the voice of the Yellow Jackets, remember? And he has been talking with the UIL, and the UIL says that nobody is jumping divisions or districts anytime soon. And even that's tried sometimes, but I wouldn't want to mess with the UIL. And if they were in charge of college football, maybe these teams weren't leaving so abruptly.
Austin LBJ is waving at you right now because they decided to opt up to 5A. They have 4A numbers and decided to opt up to 5A, and that, folks, is a story for another day. We just don't have the time to get into that today.
That is a very good football program there.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. So the question is there. They were very good in 4A. Can they sustain that in 5A?
I guess if they want to do it, they think they can.
Well, but that's an assumption that the coaches wanted that. My sources tell me coaches didn't have a say. They were told, this is what you will do.
By the principal and the school
district? By the
district?
powers that be. Huh? AISD told them, this is what you will do. And like I said, I'm sorry, folks, we just don't have the time in this segment to get into that. But it is a very interesting story. Now, the flip side is, if you're LBJ right now, and you've had 2 remarkable seasons in 4A, your confidence level, I believe, is sky high. I think their kids are going, we can play in 5A. We've done really well in 4A, we can play in 5A. And I believe that to be the case. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Because in that AISD district, and I haven't checked it, I don't know if Liberty Hill is in that district, but it would be LBJ and Liberty Hill, if they're in the same district, they would be the top 2 teams in that district. but I haven't checked it. So I don't want to go into that anymore. But yes, he is right. You can, in the UIL, you can opt up to play. You can have a 4A enrollment numbers like LBJ and say, we want to go to 5A.
Doesn't happen that often, though.
But if you are Marble Falls and you have 5A numbers and you say you want to go to 4A, that never happens.
No.
I've never heard that happen, ever. The Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC. Who am I missing? That's 4, right?
Big Ten?
Okay. Right now, if you had to pick one conference, who are you most excited to see in 2024?
Well, being a Baylor guy, I of course stuck with the Big 12, but I'm also an Alabama fan. So the SEC, a conference I grew up with, by the way, in Memphis, Tennessee, that would be my favorite conference.
Who is the big loser to you with all of the realignment and all of these schools jumping from one conference to the other?
Well, I mentioned the Pac-12. I'm telling you, they really are shaking their heads today. The Big 12 has gone through that, but I think responded quite well. And I think we're going to enjoy seeing those games in the coming years.
You know, I'm going to say I think the big loser are the fans. The fans. And I'm going to tell you why. I am somebody I have no personal interest in Michigan, Ohio State, but I am invested in watching that game every year.
I am too.
I have no interest in Alabama, Auburn, but I enjoy watching the Iron Bowl. I have no interest in Florida State, or Miami, but when they play each other, I'm curious and interested to see. To me, the big loser in the conferences, these schools jumping around like this, are those of us who grew up watching traditional powerhouses and rival games, and to think that they're not going to be played anymore. I mean, I did not grow up watching Nebraska and Oklahoma. And they have not played, I believe, since Nebraska left for the Big Ten. As a Texas fan, the thought of not playing OU and Red River bothers me. So, to the fans, you have my sympathy. I don't know what the equivalent of all that is with UCLA and USC. I don't know in the Pac-12. But I'm sure there are fans out there who are going to miss that.
Oh, indeed, because even though it was difficult for schools like California and Stanford to beat those two, the fans there in the Bay Area would certainly rather see them play UCLA and USC than play Oregon State, Washington State, Utah, Colorado. Fine institutions and good programs, but boy, there's just such a cachet, as they say these days, to the Bruins and the Trojans, that's who you want to play against, and that's who the fans want to see. As you say, the fans are losers in that.
Yeah, the bigger losers. Okay, that's it for segment number 2. I'm Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster. Art Dlugach here. Please do us a big favor and like, subscribe, and share the channel.